game called How to Be a Complete Bastard on the ZX Spectrum. Now this is a game from my proper childhood. When I mean proper childhood, I mean I was single digits. I think I might have been 7 or 8 years old when I got my grubby little hands on this. It came on the front of a magazine, a Spectrum magazine. Been in the early 90s, I believe. And yeah, you imagine what it was like, and managing to fool your mum into picking you up a magazine with a game on there called How to Be a Complete Bastard. Let's hope that she's not looking at it so she can just pick it up for me. You know, obviously looking at this now, it looks absolutely ancient. I completely accept that, but in the days when you're a young kid and you're kind of searching people's coats and eating condoms and filling them up with yogurt and kind of gross stuff like that, it's a complete step up in crudity, I suppose. But yeah, this was something different. This game's always kind of stuck in my brain. It's an adaptation of a book by the comedian Adrian Edmondson. Anyone from Britain will know him from The Young Ones as Vivian. You utter bastard, Neil. And from Bottom with Rick Mail. Rick Mail was also in The Young Ones. Pretty much the same character, but I'm a huge Ade Edmondson fan and Rick Mail fan. I grew up with them. As I was at secondary school, their Bottom series was on TV, so as a teenager, you know, dick jokes and crude jokes completely up my alley. To be honest, I don't think I've actually grown out of that too much as I've got older. For what I understand, this was an adaptation of a book by Ade Edmondson of the same name, How to Be a Complete Bastard. The aim of the game is to basically just be as much of a git as you possibly can at this party, and that's from putting ice cube down people's underwear, eating curries and farting. You see, I've got a fart meter there. I've just urinated in that tree. The ZX Spectrum had very bold colours. It'd be quite frequent you would get sort of a game with bright blue and black, or Batman was a good example. Here you see bright green and black. Back in the day, there weren't such things as demo mags. You know, now you pick up sort of an official PlayStation magazine or something of that ilk, and you'll get demos on the front. Well, I think they're even starting to phase out nowadays, simply because of the internet, I suppose. But back in them days, you'd buy a Sinclair game, Sinclair magazine, and they would have 6 or 7 full games on there. This were the days of the home coder. Everyone and their mum were making these games, man. Going absolutely nuts, you know. And it is a purely British thing, I believe, Sinclair. From looking at some videos on YouTube, it was produced here in the UK, the Spectrum. So, but there was just thousands of these games everywhere, and you'd go into I went into Boots, I think, if I remember, back in sort of the late 80s, early 90s with my mum, and I would see Spectrum games like $3.99. You know, can you even imagine buying a game for $3.99 now? Wow. Even on eBay, you might get something like Perfect Dark Zero or something for $3.99, but that you were talking a couple of quid worth of games, you know. And considering what they had to work with processor-wise and RAM-wise, I think they had to be a little bit inventive with their games. And as you can see, this here on the front of a magazine, can you imagine how many hours fun I would have with stuff like this as a kid? Getting as many bastard points as possible. You see my fartometer down the bottom right there. If I press the F key, I fart and I'll clear the room, and the smellometer goes down gradually, and basically people come back in the room and the smell's gone. This is pure toilet humour at its lowest denominator. But even at 30 years of age, I must admit, flicking this back on with the nostalgia, I did have a bit of a giggle making this video. It's just something else, man. It really is. I would say my main era as a child was probably the Sega Mega Drive and Mega CD were sort of my main thing. But this was when I was really young. I mean, to even load a Spectrum game, you'd have to put it on, and what you put your cassette tape in the deck. I had a 128 model. I believe there was a 48K model as well. But and you'd watch it load, and you'd have this high-pitched screechy noise, and you'd literally wait 5 to 10 minutes for this cassette to load through, and the amount of times that it would just crash, and you would have to go right back to square one and load the game again. But nowadays, you know, I know you younger gamers who watch my channel say, oh, I have it good. You do have it good now. Load times are nothing like the old days. Yeah, I remember like having, I'll buy games, I think Gremlins 2 come on a couple of different cassettes, and you'd have to like load it mid-game. The worst thing ever would be if you completed, say, the first 4 levels and the game crashed, or you loaded the second tape and the game crashed. Oh, that was such a bitch. You'd have to go back and start the game again. That's where passwords really had, really sort of had a good thing, you know, when you didn't have to play it all again. But there's a few people who I'm subscribed to who like retro stuff. 80s game reviews. Check him out, guys. I'll leave the link in the channel. Great guy. Definitely deserves more subscribers than he has. I really enjoy his rambles and his reviews. He does a lot of retro stuff. A little bit older than myself, but an older gamer. So I think us older guys tend to have a little bit more perspective on what we've seen prior to sort of the current generation. I mean, for me to make these videos and upload them to YouTube, if I was 18 or 19, I'd be doing nothing else but uploading these videos now. I would dedicate time to it, big time, you know. But I didn't have the technology back in these days. This is what we had. You know, this is what we had. Cheap and cheerful, ZX Spectrum, Amstrad, Amiga 500s, all things in that. Amiga was quite a good console, man. I had a Mega Drive. I remember my friend had an Amiga 500, just getting off topic. I was so jealous of the graphics on that thing, man. He had a copy of Shadow of the Beast I had on the Mega Drive, which was an okay port. The music, man, on the Amiga just, and the clarity of the graphics just blew me away. It was on floppy disks. You'd have to sit there and wait for like 4 or 5 floppy disks to load. Same sort of thing as the ZX Spectrum, I suppose. But don't get me wrong, I do have a soft spot for retro stuff, and I will always occasionally go back and play retro stuff. But when you're sitting there, I'm playing online games against people in sort of America, and I'm playing Fight Night with them and knocking these dudes out in America and Japan and all these other places. I think we have it better now than we've ever had it, and I think we need to keep that. There we go. Look at this farts there. Clear the room. That's a Godzilla room filler. No silent but violent. Squeeze my zits again. Excuse me. Yeah, to be honest, we've never had it better as gamers, and I think some of you guys are probably looking at this saying, what the fudge is this? What? I think anyone who's familiar with Adrian Edmondson and Rick Mail will see their humour infused into this game. I mean, putting the yogurt into the condom, for example, was kind of gross, and they commented how realistic it looks. But I'm just going to go and kill myself now. I'm going to eat all the curry and explode. I really hope you enjoyed my ramble. This is Sakuraba1982 signing off.
Outstanding.